Welcome back. Time to talk racing. Brian Martin has joined us. Brian, who's just got back yesterday from Hong Kong, and before that, of course, Japan, where he called the Japan Cup. We'll be talking about that a little later and showing the race in full once again, but we're going to talk mainly about what happened around Australia yesterday before then. Welcome back, Brian.
Nice to be home again, Bruce. How are you?
I'm really well. Before we do talk about the Japan Cup, because there's a lot to talk about there and lots of stories that have come out of that race with Shaftesbury Avenue, etc. What about yesterday? I thought it was pretty sad to see Stylish Century going so poorly in the Winfield Stakes.
Yes, it wasn't really in keeping with Stylish Century of late, because he looked as though he's starting to regain some of that old magic about him. But watching that race, seeing him lead up and seem to be on a good rein, but he just got totally run over on the home turn, and you just wonder with Stylish Century where he goes to from now.
Well, you were away during the week, but there's been a lot of controversy over whether the horse should have run or not. He'd had an injury, and stewards had had a look at him. You know, he's had a lot of hard racing for a long, long time, and 2 years ago he looked the best thing that we had, and at the moment he's become also ran suddenly, which is a real shame, I feel. It
is for an entire too, because he obviously has a great deal of value as a stud proposition, but that's sort of starting to wane now, you know, with these unplaced runs in races that he should be winning and winning easily.
The other disappointing thing for Western Australia yesterday was he was going to be one of the draw cards of the carnival. Now suddenly he's gone. The race was dominated by a couple of three-year-olds, Old Roll and Vows. Now you would have called Vows' race in the Sandown Guineas. Were you here for that?
Yes, I was, Bruce. It was a good performance there. It doesn't surprise me that Vows went so well there. He's obviously going to be one of the top chances for the BMW Australian Derby coming up.
OK, let's go to Perth, the Winfield Stakes. This race over the years has been won by some tremendous horses. Family of Man won it twice. Kingston Town was successful, and in more recent years, Vo Rogue and Better Loosen Up. Stylish Century, one of the favourites. He was a 5-2, and we picked him up with about 1,000 to go, and he's out in front.
On the side at the 1,000, and the big black from Banana Land, Stylish Century, joined by the baldy-faced Larwood's Gift on the outside. Two Dvorsky, one to Vows, Harper Valley on the inside at Quail-Up, a half to Old Roll, and then Star Alert, Higginsville, never on the track, 3 wide. Yilganji Gold, 3 deep, then Bow Pirate, Laudanum, Franklin about to go, on Mirror Magic and My Bobby Boo, snookered at the rear. Inside the 600 they thunder, and the leader Stylish Century, joined by Vows up 3 wide for Beatman. Larwood's Gift in the middle, Higginsville and Quail-Up going around them. Then Old Roll, Harper Valley, followed by Zavorsky on the bend, and Vows the leader, joined by Higginsville as they turn. Old Roll got out, Stylish Century gone, and then Quail-Up and Laudanum down the outside at the 200. Higginsville got to Vows, Old Roll has joined them both. Here's a go now, Vows and Old Roll, and Higginsville in the middle. It's Vows and Old Roll, Vows, Old Roll on the outside doing a shade. The better took the lead, and Old Roll bloused out Vows. Higginsville close up third.
Yes, Old Roll winning there. He's won 5 out of 13. Vows had beaten him in the Western Australian Guineas a couple of starts ago, but both those horses now very much in line for the Australian Derby.
Yeah, they look quite genuine going down to the post, those 2 3-year-olds. They sort of, and the horse in the middle, seem to come away, and I like the way they went to the line. That Australian Derby will sort of shape up okay this year too.
Be all right, and Bart's 3-year-old filly India's Dream ran 3rd yesterday. She had no luck at all, and the feeling is she'll improve sharply and take some beating in the Oaks and then in the Derby, I'd imagine.
Well, she stretched the best of the 3-year-old fillies in the Oaks, didn't she, here in Melbourne?
She was very good. Now, still talking about Perth, Ideal Centre Man yesterday was on trial for a trip to Perth. He's an 8-year-old, but he did win the Adelaide Cup earlier this year. His trainer forgot about the Melbourne Cup and decided to concentrate on Perth, and it looked a pretty good run. He was getting home very well.
He went to Perth last year and went well in the lead-up race. He won that, I think it was the Cox Stakes, and then he ran a good race. They got him sort of about 50 metres off the post there in the Cup last year. So he's maybe this year is taking a little bit longer to sort of come to form.
On reflection, you wouldn't fancy him against Let's Elope and Shiver's Revenge. It was probably a very good move not going to Flemington for Melbourne Cup and going for the Perth Cup.
Yeah, a bit too strong this time round, Bruce.
And Harry will probably ride him. Now, Logical Option, which won a race, had only been really a country performer. He'd won races at Mornington and Moe and hadn't broken his duck in the city, but he looked pretty good yesterday, and he also might go over.
Yeah, he's got staying potential. I've seen him come through the classes, through the provincial circuits, but he likes to sort of bowl along up near the front. But he does stick on pretty well. OK, let's go to the race. Frontier Boy the favourite, but it's very hard to carry big weights over a distance, particularly at Moonee Valley. We go to the race and watch Ideal Centre Man in the last 50 metres. He does get home very well.
Coming up to the 500, Logical Option about a length to moving away. Ideal Centre Man, Frontier Boy running on pretty well. And they were followed by Bull and Night Tarsi as they come up towards the home turn. Logical Option is the leader. Ideal Centre Man is now second, running on well. Frontier Boy is under pressure. They're followed by Moving Away, and then there's a break to Surf Lauren. Round the turn they come. Logical Option the leader by a length and a half. Ideal Centre Man is trying hard, but this leader's got a handy break. Logical Option halfway down the running from Ideal Centre Man, Frontier Boy, and Ringo starting to fly home. Logical Option getting a bit weary, close to home, but he's going to hang on, I think. Yes, he will. Logical Option won by a long neck to Ideal Centre Man, moving away as third.
Yes, you can see Ideal Centre Man taking some ground off Logical Option. Over 3,200, you'd probably prefer the older horse, I think.
The older stage, I think he's quite genuine at 32, isn't he?
Those guys go a little slowly compared with a horse called Baccara, who's a real flyer, who was successful first time in this preparation yesterday. He ran on Wednesday at Flemington while she was away and ran fourth, but hung very badly. Was on one rein for most of the way, and Russell Cameron backed him up again yesterday. He's a real flying machine, isn't he? Yes,
he doesn't really get beyond about the 1,000, does he? That's about where he stops. But he had been beaten prior to my going away at Sandown, yet I see they ran close to Rolex record there the other day at Sandown. That's quite amazing.
Schillaci ran 55.5 or something on Monday.
Incredible.
Well, you've seen Schillaci.
Yes, I saw Schillaci win at Kyneton and get beaten at the and a pretty good run in the Spring Carnival lead-up weekend. But I never thought they'd ever get near Rolex.
No, well, they're talking weight for age races for Schillaci already. Gee. But it's a big rap. But back to Baccara, maybe the Oakley Plate, but the 1,100 might be just 100 too far for him.
You get a sight for your money, Bruce, but the last 100's going to test you, I think.
Well, he wasn't tested too much yesterday. Let's go to the Valley and see this flying machine from Adelaide.
The school side, they travel now, and Baccara is the leader, led by a half length to Rosso Verde, pushing up on the inside, followed by Gallipoli Prince, a length and a half, Century Rising, Otaka Sana, and Luskin Show is making up ground, a length and a half, so Gay Paris, send a sign to the outside, running on, Sculptured Arch behind them, Laurenti, as they make the home turn on the outside. Baccara forged to the lead here from Rosso Verde as they straighten up. Gallipoli Prince is third, Luskin Show behind them, but Bacara's kicked away, coming down towards the 150 is nicely out in front of Century Rising, is running on pretty well, followed by Rosso Verde and Luskin Show. Baccara is the leader. Century Rising trying hard. Baccara too good. Baccara by a length to Century Rising. I think Rosso Verde just third ahead of Luskin Show, and Mr. Cube flew home.
First of a double for Darren Gauci. Bacara's trainer will be off to Hong Kong shortly with the Cheval Cavalier, Russell Cameron, and you've just come back from Hong Kong. That was also a big cup race, not quite the magnitude of Japan, though.
Yes, it's run about mid-December. It's an invitational cup, and last year Kessam, of course, went after running in the McKinnon Stakes and went straight across, and he started 6-4 favourite to win that. But Cheval Cavalier is probably capable of being in a race like that. It's for horses restricted to about Group 3, but it's one of their big races, and they're all pretty well geared up over there. They've got some good local horses too.
Can you see that race growing in stature?
Nowhere near to the size of anything like the Japan Cup or Cox Plate or anything like that at all. No, it's a good race without being over the top.
OK, fair enough. Let's go to Sydney yesterday. Randwick. Mick Dittman was at his absolute best, a couple of his rides, Bass Drum and also Mocker. Firstly, Bass Drum, who looked well and truly beaten in the straight when headed, but watch Dittman's vigour.
Down the side to the 700 mark with only 6 lengths covering the field. Bass Drum is the leader, not there, under some pressure now. Sail Proof is out 3 deep. Windy Morn kicking up, has to go 4 deep. They've got Colonial Spirit about 5 wide on the corner, and even wider is High Spy. Into the straight, Bass Drum, the leader, clear of Sail Proof. On the fence, Frank Who, followed by Windy Morn, and then Colonial Spirit as they come over the rise to the top of the hill, and Windy Morn headed Bass Drum. Colonial Spirit a length away, under pressure now, he can't go on, and Windy Morn is clear at the 200 mark. Bass Drum is sticking on gamely. High Spy running home well. Colonial Spirit can't find any more. It's Bass Drum fighting back after being headed. He's going best, and Bass Drum has come again after being well and truly headed to win it by a neck to Windy Morn. High Spy has run third, and then Tusk Hunter, Colonial Spirit.
I may be making this up, it may be an exaggeration, but I feel in Sydney that horses do get headed a lot more and fight back than they do here in Melbourne.
How'd you like to have your last on Windy Morn, though, wasn't he? He was probably a 10s-on chance at the 200-metre mark, but Dittman's the type of rider that never gives up. If there's still a yard to go, he'll still find something. He's a tremendous strength, isn't he?
Wonderful jockey. That horse has now won his last 3. Tommy Smith trains him. He's a 6-year-old and he'll go for the Summer Cup, but the second horse will probably improve. The other ride by Dittman was on Mocker. This horse did the opposite. It came from well back. It was his first win at 1,400 metres and his first win at Randwick.
Laser Beam is the leader up towards the 400. Led about a neck down advance of Faith No More challenging. Seguasino on the outside running on pretty well. Grip Decision is making a run. And just in behind them Black Rouge and a long gap to Let's to Have Your Say, who can't get a run anywhere as they straighten up. Laser Beam being tackled by Seguasino. Seguasino on the outside coming at Laser Beam is battling on well. Faith No More. Grip Decision down the outside at Black Rouge. But the leader still is Laser Beam in the final stages. It's too good, Laser Beam. Laser Beam has won it nicely. Tight for second and third, maybe Grip Decision and nose for second ahead of Seguasino.
Well, that's not my imagination. I wasn't making that one up, was I? But that's Laser Beam winning at Moonee Valley Race 7 yesterday for Michael Clark.
I know you're a David Hayes fan, but do you have to show us the race again in the Quinella?
Oh, gee, I don't know what happened there. But Mocha did win in Sydney as well, Brian.
Sure.
But I tell you what we're going to have after the break. We're not going to have the Hong Kong Cup. We're going to have the Japan Cup for sure.
I'd like to see that.
We'll be back after this. Japan Cup, Australia again tremendously represented by Shaftesbury Avenue, and Rough Habit doing very well for New Zealand. The man who called the race, who called Better Loosen Up to win last year's Brian Martin. Brian, we're about to see the race in full again. How does it compare for a race caller in terms of nerves with the Melbourne Cup here?
Yes, it's quite frightening, really, because I'm the only English-speaking commentator there. Well, that's been the case for the last 2 years. In front of me is a guy calling in Cantonese. Then there's a row of Japanese commentators, about 15 to 20 Japanese commentators. So to have all that happening around you, now keep in mind we're not in a broadcast booth, we're just in an open press stand. So a little bit worrying, but the amazing thing is the crowd reaction. Over there, there's a local champion called Majuro McQueen, and he's a 4-year-old stallion. And he'd won something like 7 out of 13. He was the hero, the local hero, and he's been ridden by a jockey called Yutaka Take. And he's 23 years of age, and he is an absolute idol in Japan. So many of the women go to the races, the younger women go to the races just to take his photo, more so than the bet. Now, he'd been beaten on this particular horse, Majuro McQueen, in the Emperor's Autumn Cup back in late October. The horse actually won by 6, but caused interference earlier in the race and was relegated back to last. Take was so embarrassed he left the country for a week.
Cheers.
But every time this horse came up on the big screen or appeared anywhere onto the track, the crowd of 150,000 went wild. So that was a little bit unnerving pre-race.
OK, you've set the scene. Let's go to the race. Shaftesbury Avenue looks pretty unlucky. He gets some interference on the home turn. He was wide in the early stages. Here's the Japan Cup and Brian's call.
Now they look to be set, yes. The field is ready for the Japan Cup. They're racing. They're off. And Majuro Ardan and Majuro McQueen bounced out quickly, going fast up in the centre now, Fujiyama Kenzan. The Japanese horses very prominent, settling down, and from the outside, George Monarch with a great turn of speed. George Monarch clears the field now at the winning post to lead by 2 lengths to, in second placing, Fujiyama Kenzan over on the inside of Majuro Ardan, who's gone up third. 2 lengths further back, then Carib Song going around the outside. Majuro McQueen is over on the fence, and they're followed by Watched in the middle. Splash of colour back along the inside, followed by Magic Knight. Shaftesbury Avenue midfield, a little wide from Terramond, a length further back, then is Rough Habit, then Main Caster a half length further back, Golden Pheasant, followed by Drum Taps, and Rock Happer is last of all. George Monarch carts the field into the back straight in the Japan Cup to lead by 2.5 lengths to Majuro Ardan second, a half length further back. Fujiyama Kenzan is over on the inside. It's running third, a half length to Carib Song fourth. A neck further back in the middle is Watched, a length then to Majuro McQueen. It's over on the inside of Magic Knight, and the favourite is running sixth on the rail. A length and a half further back in the field, then Terramon on the outside, a splash of colour. Gauchi can't get in at the moment on Shaftesbury Avenue. He's 3 deep around Rough Habit. Main Caster on the fence, a half length further back, Golden Pheasant, followed by Drum Taps, and Rock Hopper is last of all at the 1200 metre mark in the Japan Cup. And the leader is George Monarch. George Monarch by 2 lengths. Fujiyama Kenzan on the inside there of Majuro Ardan. They're followed further back by Carib Song, and the Japanese horses first, second, third and fourth. Then came moving up Watched on the outside of Majuro McQueen from Magic Knight. Further back was Terramond, over along the inside, Splash of Colour. Well back Shaftesbury Avenue, then came Rough Habit, followed by Rock Hopper. Well back in the field, then Drum Taps and Main Caster last of all. They're sweeping to the 750 metre mark now and shifting away from the fence. George Monarch over along the inside, Fujiyama Kenzan going forward. Further out is Carib Song, followed by Majura Ardan, and just behind them now, Majura McQueen is about to get a run. They're homeward bound to the Japan Cup now, and out wide on the track, Carib Song, and coming up the Magic Night to Philly, Majura McQueen going back for a run on the inside, and down the outside now is Golden Pheasant. Golden Pheasant is raced up on the outside for the United States to take the lead from Magic Night, and they come away from Majura McQueen. Rough Habit is late from Shaftesbury Avenue. The American horse, though, is clear. Golden Pheasant in front of Magic Night. Shaftesbury Avenue getting up to third, but Golden Pheasant comes away with the Japan Cup. Golden Pheasant by a length and a half to Magic Night. Shaftesbury Avenue a length away third.
Yes, Golden Pheasant winning for the United States, and some interesting things happening with the horse straight after the race.
Yes, well, the horse had been offered by Charlie Whittingham on behalf of the owners to anyone interested to stand stud. His lead-up form, although he'd been an Arlington Million winner in the season prior, had been ordinary. And even the Japanese weren't interested. Now, 2 days after the race, they paid $3.7 million for him to stand there in the Japan.
Makes a big difference. And Shaftesbury Avenue's run, I mean, his last 100 metres was sensational. I love the way he stretched out.
Well, Bruce, he worked brilliantly on Friday morning. The Thursday morning, we watched him work over 3 laps. He looked good, but then he really sprinted him up Bart on the Friday, I think it was, prior to Sunday, and his work was outstanding. At the end of 2,400 metres there, he was so strong in that company. Heavens knows what's going to happen in the autumn with Better Loosen Up probably going to make it back for the Australian Cup. We're in for one hell of an autumn race.
Well, you can imagine Better Loosen Up, superimposed Let's Elope and Shaftesbury Avenue flattening out at the 200 at Flemington. That would make the heart race a little.
I think so.
Brian, terrific for you to join us, and well done. Great call once again, and we look forward to talking to you shortly.
Catch you.
Good on you. Brian Martin, the man who brought the Japan Cup to the whole of Australia. We take a break after this. Neil Donnelly joins us to talk about the Miracle Mile from Harold Park.
Tom Hanks.
Still to come, the Miracle Mile, the $400,000 race from Harold Park, a clash of the fastest harness horses in Australasia. Speaking of fast, Oscar NASCAR Nationals are on. Out at Calder, we take you out there live. Spike Cheney on his way to stardom in the professional ranks. 2 people on the comeback trail, both hoping to go to Barcelona, Tim Jackson and Marie Holland. Hockey, it's the National Hockey League final. We talk to 2 of the top contestants, plus the draw for Barcelona. It's going to be tough for Australia, and a very special junior triathlete.